ideas is a really important skill to show your learning. It helps show that you can identify and describe the key ideas about a topic. It shows that you understand the examples that relate to that topic. It can show that you understand the specific details about an idea and also that you understand why something matters, so both the implications and significance. So how do we do that? There are lots of different ways. Here at school we've been using a lot of Peel paragraphs. You may have heard of SOLO or even SEEKS. Yes, that is an acronym for paragraph writing. A really common one we use is a Peel paragraph. Peel stands for point, explain, example, evidence, and link. So the point is a sentence which makes a point or states an idea concisely. It's kind of the introductory sentence. Explain provides a detailed explanation or analysis of the evidence, which is linked clearly to the question that you are answering. Whereas the example and evidence, the point is supported by evidence, quotation, examples. The explain and example or evidence are interchangeable. They might go in different orders sometimes. Finally, the link is where you might discuss the significance or implications or how this all relates to the wider world. It's showing that you understand why an idea matters. Here's an example of a Peel paragraph. You can see that it starts with a simple point, so it's kind of a one sentence answer to whatever the question is. It then talks through an explanation, the example, and a link that shows how this relates to the wider world. However, at higher academic levels, as you get older, simple Peel structures aren't always enough to provide enough depth and detail for what is required. So what we can do is use a Peel paragraph as the bones, but give it a little bit more muscle by using an academic writing guide. This is an example of a guide. So the key differences between a regular Peel paragraph and one with a little bit more muscle is, first of all, you might include some more key definitions. You might or should definitely include more relevant key ideas, and you should include references and citations. Here's an example. You can see from this example, first of all, that again there is still the P stating the main point. There are key definitions added. There are at least 3 key ideas discussed. There is an example provided and a sentence that links it to the wider context. You can also see that the key words that are being used, because this is a science paragraph, has been underlined to show the appropriate scientific language for the context, but also in some cases you can also see that some clarification is provided about key terms where they are important to show that the person writing this understands. Let's write one together. So first of all, we want to state the main point. So in this case, our paragraph relates to COVID-19 and coronaviruses. So COVID-19 is a type of virus. That's our main point. We might then add a definition. So step 2, viruses are infectious particles that are made of a protein coat around nucleic material. So I've got my main point. Step 2, I add a definition of the key words from that main point. Next, I add my 3 or more relevant ideas. In this case, you can see that I've added 3 key ideas that further explain that main point. I then add examples or evidence. So in this case, my examples are SARS and MERS, as well as COVID-19. I'm then going to explain the significance. Often this is more than one sentence because these often tend to be complex ideas. In this case, I've talked about the highly infectious rate of COVID-19, the fact that it is quite fatal, and as a result, it's resulted in major lockdowns, which has had some economic implications. Then I go back and check for the key words. So while my original language used a lot of scientific wording already, I also went in and added further clarification in some points where it wasn't clear what the meaning of those words were. This shows that I understand the language that I am using. Next, I added my references and citations. So all of the research that I did for this paragraph came from these two sources. I then went in and showed in the paragraph where I used them. You might be interested to know that ND here stands for no date provided. This is the appropriate formatting for no date provided using APA referencing. Finally, I've gone through and checked my grammar and punctuation. You can see that I edited some things because I thought some things were repeated. I crossed out some things where I could make the language simpler, or I added some words where I could make things a little bit more clear. And that provides me with a far more in-depth paragraph than what a regular Peel paragraph would provide. The reason we do this is, first of all, we need to use the appropriate jargon. So in this case, it was scientific language that I will use. However, the same holds true if you're writing in any other subject area, whether it is a social sciences, history context, and media studies context. Regardless, you want to show that you can use the appropriate jargon for that discipline. Next up, I want to show that I understand the keywords that I'm using, whether it is for the context I'm specifically writing about or the general use of the terms. I want to explain the key ideas and examples to show that I understand what they mean. The examples that I provide need to then support and elaborate on my point to help further my explanation. I need to show why the ideas that I've discussed matter through talking about the implications and or the significance. And finally, I need to use appropriate referencing. This shows that I'm beginning to understand where my ideas come from and can reference them appropriately. Keep in mind that this is not just for writing. If I'm submitting an audio file or a video file, which we do encourage you to do, you should use a similar structure to ensure that your responses are in depth and provide the sufficient detail. Right, ready, set, go. Time to write your own great in-depth and detailed paragraph.